In my early 20s, I sought psychotherapy and went into the field of clinical psychology. I earnestly searched for a full solution to the problem of suffering, but only found partial answers. Even after I graduated and began my professional career, I still had lingering self-doubts. After working 4 years at a community mental health center, I shifted to working as a private therapist. I made that change in hopes I would find greater happiness and fulfillment. I wanted to be freer to actualize my own values. On the negative side, that change also re-stimulated my fears of the possibility of failure. In March 1979, at age 31, less than a week after entering private practice, I experienced a personal crisis. Suddenly, I felt a wonderful sense of peace and calm and happiness, more so than ever before in my life. I studied and looked inward to discover the basis for the wonderful gift I had received. I adopted a daily meditation practice, which involved focusing on my breathing and letting go of all other thoughts and sensations. I also spent much time reading the Bible, the writings of the Christian mystics, the early Buddhist teachings, as well as the great vehicle Buddhist scriptures, such as the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, the Lankavatara Sutra, and the Threefold Lotus Sutra. Of all that I was exposed to, I was clearly most attracted to the great vehicle teachings and practices. After about 6 months of study, I felt confident enough to publish a newspaper ad offering to share my perspective on Mahayana Buddhism with interested persons in my home community. I had regular sessions with 4 such individuals, which not only helped them, but myself as well. By trying to teach them, I learned much about myself and about the Buddha Dharma. Thankfully, one of my, quote, students was an elderly woman who helped me appreciate the Pure Land perspective. In a sense, I was the student, and she was actually my, quote, good teacher. Lucille had already been exposed to Taoism and Tibetan Buddhism through her own self-study. She also had developed a strong devotional orientation toward Amida Buddha, whom she portrayed in beautiful paintings. Lucille helped interest me in learning more about the Pure Land school of Buddhism. I reflected deeply on the Sukhavati Sutras, which tell of Amida, his vow, and his world. I thus came to the gate of the Nembutsu. About 1 year after my, quote, religious conversion, I was still experiencing a fairly constant state of peace of mind. I was arrogant enough at that time to think that I could actually approximate some of the bodhisattva virtues. I restructured my life to pursue a more altruistic direction. What I discovered is that I couldn't perform the practices necessary to achieve Buddhahood. Through knowing Lucille, through further study and reflection, and through facing the reality of my own limitations, I realized by the summer of 1980 that Amida was responsible for my peace of mind. He had given me the freedom from fear and anxiety which I now enjoyed, and it was his power upon which I had been relying. I then accepted Amida's compassionate help with conscious awareness, thus entering the gate of the Nembutsu. I still, however, didn't fully appreciate the fact that Amida had no requirements of me at all. I shifted from exerting efforts toward the performance of, quote, good actions, such as serving the poor and laying the groundwork for a hospice program, to focusing my efforts on worshiping Amida. I restructured my life further. What I discovered after 3 months of doing this was that even worship and the Nembutsu are not necessary for salvation. I was overjoyed to realize that Amida accepted me just as I was, with all my flaws and limitations. Even the faith I experienced was a totally free gift from him. Namo Amida Butsu. My 3-year period of experimentation with my life was over. During those years, a feeling was established within me of absolute assurance that Amida's embrace extends to me. I realized that Hozo Bosatsu anticipated and felt great compassion for my inability to fulfill the practices necessary to achieve enlightenment on my own. He therefore resolved that he would give up his own attainment of Buddhahood unless, when he became a Buddha, he could establish a land free of all suffering, where anyone, however evil, could be reborn. Then he backed up this great universal vow with the massive power of innumerable virtues and good deeds, which he performed over many eons of time. Hozo Bosatsu successfully fulfilled his great vow and became Amida Buddha, my savior. In the larger Pure Land Sutra, Shakyamuni describes in detail that wondrous place in the western part of the universe which Amida created, a world free from defilement and pain. Amida thus says to me, in essence, rely on the saving power of my embrace, rather than on your own contrived self-efforts. I guarantee you will be born in my paradise when your earthly life ends. You will immediately, at that time, attain Buddhahood. I have been profoundly comforted by Amida's merciful promise, confident that I will reach the supreme perfect enlightenment of Buddhahood when this lifetime ends, due to his extraordinary efforts on my behalf. And I am exceedingly grateful. My natural response to this wondrous gift is to joyfully and thankfully call out his name. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. The question has subsequently arisen for me as to what I should do with the rest of my life until my birth in Amida's pure land of bliss. What lies beyond the gate of the Nembutsu? As I reflect on this question, an important consideration seems to be, what does Amida expect me to do? I don't believe that Amida expects me to conform to a strict moral code. He knows that my karmic condition is such that I can't. That's why he made his compassionate original vow. Shinran Shonin taught that, quote, entrusting yourself to the primal vow requires no performance of good, for no act can hold greater virtue than saying the name. Nor is there any need to despair of the evil you commit, for no act is so evil that it obstructs the working of Amida's primal vow. Shinran also said, quote, I know nothing of what is good and evil. This being so, I am relieved to conclude that Amida certainly must not expect consistently, quote, good behavior from me. Nor do I believe that Amida expects me to become proficient in knowledge of the Dharma, or in the performance of religious practices. It says in the Tanisho, quote, all the sacred writings that explain the significance of the truth and reality of other power teach that if one says the name, entrusting to the primal vow, one attains Buddhahood. The name is meant to be easy to say for the person unfamiliar with even a single character and ignorant of the threads of discourse in the sutras and commentaries. Hence it is called the easy practice. Shinran himself said, quote, I simply accept and entrust myself to what a good teacher told me. Just say the name and be saved by Amida. Nothing else is involved. I can't imagine that Amida expects my understandings and practice to involve more than Shinran's. Although Amida expects nothing of me, I find that I do have expectations of myself to exhibit, quote, good behavior to the best of my ability. This sense of personal and social responsibility is based on gratitude for all that has been given to me, and a distaste for the karmic consequences of, quote, doing evil. Regarding negative behaviors, Shinran reminded us that it doesn't make sense to take a poison just because we know there is an antidote available. So my faith in Amida's grace has certainly not led me to a state of immorality. It has, however, relieved me of the burden of requiring myself to be perfect. In the Tanisho, Shinran was said to have described the essence of the true teaching this way, quote, the moment you entrust yourself to the inconceivable working of Amida's vow, you are brought to share in the benefit of being grasped by Amida, never to be abandoned. Know that the primal vow of Amida makes no distinction between people young and old, good and evil. Only the entrusting of yourself to it is essential. For it was made to save the person in whom karmic evil is deep-rooted and whose blind passions abound. That means me. Namo Nembutsu.